So hello everyone, we're starting our social media workshop. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I wanted to introduce briefly our panelists, social media and journalism instructors who joined us for this discussion. And then I will share my screen and you will see each other names and positions and the courses that our amazing instructors are teaching at the Academy, both in social media center classes and the fashion journalism program. So this workshop is run by both programs, the journalism and the social media center. So the instructors who are joining us today are teaching in both programs. So I'm really happy to introduce everyone by name and briefly mentioning the courses first, and then I'll start sharing my screen. And then again, you'll see everyone's position and courses again. So we have Diane Dorrans Saeks joining us today. Hello, Diane.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hi, Diane is a renowned critique, best-selling author of 23 books on style, interior design, fashion style. She writes about travel, interior design, and is teaching in the Academy of Art University in Journalism program, the fashion criticism and runway reporting classes. I wanted to introduce Olia Kedik, who is teaching blogging and social media content development. Hi, Olia.
Hi everyone.
Hi, so Olia is influencer, blogger, and entrepreneur, and is teaching with the Academy since a few years. And again, you will see each other bios as soon as I'll start sharing my screen and the presentation that I prepared. So I wanted to introduce Uduak. Hi, Uduak.
Hi, everyone. Good to see everybody.
Uduak is teaching social media center courses on social media law and ethics, data and analytics, and social media content development. I wanted to introduce as well Flora Tsapovsky, journalist, blogger. Hi, Flora. Flora is teaching journalism, fashion feature storytelling class, and social media strategies with Social Media Center. So I'm checking briefly if we have other instructors joining us for the panel. Some more were planning to come in. They will probably be joining us as we move forward. So let me start sharing my screen with you guys. And whenever you have questions, comments, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. If there are resources or just thoughts that you'd like to share as far as we are discussing those various questions that I prepared for you to go over, please don't hesitate and put them to the chat. I will monitor it during the conversation as much as possible, or otherwise we will then switch back to the gallery view in our Zoom space and we'll answer all the questions after the panel discussion. So I will start and share my screen with you. We have more attendees joining us. Continue. So we have, yes, we have one more workshop attendee, Nia DeGrot, who is joining us. I'll just give him a few seconds to enter. And I apologize for any technical glitch we may have today. I'm both running and technically hosting the workshop. So I'll try to juggle this all as well as possible. But again, if in case there are any technical glitches, please apologize. Please excuse me for this. So we are starting our social media workshop. Our agenda today is to let you meet some of our social media and journalism instructors, get to know them better, get to know our classes and social media center as well. I wanted to bring up for discussion with you a few news and current events in social media. So we'll talk about how social media was affected during COVID-19 pandemic and what role did it play in people's lives, in companies, trajectories, and people careers as well. We will talk about Black Lives Matter social media movements during anti-racism protests. We'll mention a few social media movements that happened through June and that continue to evolve in the social media space. We will discuss a few large-scale issues with social media networks such as Facebook boycott, the Twitter hack that just happened last week, and TikTok ban. And I'd love to hear not only our panelists' thoughts, but also you, the workshop attendees. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas as of how this impacts the business side of social media, but also how do you see it from the user perspective? And then finally, we'll discuss one of the big news in Instagram and TikTok rivalry. Instagram is launching Reels. Is it a real alternative to TikTok? How do you see this? What do our panelists think about this new addition to social media panorama of networks, powerful powerhouses? And then finally, we'll share with you just a quick refresher, a reminder of a few useful resources for content creation and for social media strategy. And so, again, I wanted to introduce our instructors, so you see each other names and positions and courses that we teach on the screen again. And after the workshop, not only I will share with you the recording to this session, but I will also share the PDF of the slideshow that you are viewing. So no need to copy, or if you'd like to connect with any of the instructors in person, you're welcome to ask for contacts in the chat. And again, I will be sharing with you the slideshow after the workshop is finished. So again, my name is Diane Eberhard. I'm so sorry, I didn't introduce myself in the very beginning, but I believe already taking classes with me or being part of fashion journalism program. Again, our panelists today are Oduak, who is teaching social media data and analytics in social media law and ethics courses. Flora Tsapovsky, who is teaching social media strategies, creative writing and storytelling. With us here today is Diane Saeks, who is teaching fashion criticism, run research and reporting, and who is running her blog, Style Salonist, and the eponymous social media account very successfully. So we'd love to hear Diane's thought on social media current events as well. And we have Olia Kedik, blogger, influencer, content creator, social media strategist, and entrepreneur, who is teaching with us blogging, content creation, and promotion class. Another instructor, Philippe Chidel, was going to join us as well. He'll probably be chiming in later. Philippe is film writer, director, editor, and an independent filmmaker who is teaching social media content development in social media center classes. And then a brief overview of our classes in Social Media Center. I know many of you already take those classes. Just a quick refresher that those 6 courses are available for you both online and on-site. Hopefully I'll return on-site sometime in the next academic year. So keep in mind on the news with this social media courses. The social media content development and social media strategies are our 2 most popular classes. And again, I believe many of you are already had taken or are currently taking those classes. Again, the list of Social Media Center courses and the link to the page at the Academy website where you can find more information about social media management certificate. And then now I would like for us to switch to those current news and events in social media that we will be discussing today. And first one is how social media impacted our lives during COVID-19 pandemic. Now that we start discussing those questions, I wanted to suggest that as we go through each of those issues, questions, situations, I will from time to time stop sharing my screen so to see you again as a group and as a panel. And I will pass the word to our panelists so that they will be able to comment on those events and those issues that we will be discussing. Main challenges obviously during COVID-19 pandemic, as all of us are being locked down in our homes, sheltering in place. Obviously, the audience that all of us as social media content creators, the audience that we see in front of us is often anxious, often stressed out. People are tired of isolation, some experience also financial uncertainty. Those are main challenges that companies and social media content creators have to overcome in order to come up with meaningful content in those situations. Some of the advantages that we notice are probably the main advantage is that users increase the time that they spend on social media or on streaming services. So obviously that opens for platforms, content creators, brands promoting their content, an opportunity to have probably a longer, bigger attention paid to their content and resources during the pandemic, during the lockdown. What are the solutions that we should keep in mind in order for those messages to be meaningful for our audiences? Tone and content of your social media posts are more important than ever. So keep in mind to, in any moment, not to appear tone deaf or ignorant of those challenges that the audience is going through, and try as much as possible to incorporate it in the content that you produce. And again, I'll turn to our panelists to hear their thoughts about it in just a minute. A few recommendations that social media strategists are sharing in the current circumstances. One is to double the blogging efforts of companies, content creators, and so forth. As people have more time to consume those resources, blogs and blog content are definitely leaving a revival in those circumstances. Companies are exploring more in-depth email marketing strategies, turning back to the, we can say, old school in a way, email newsletters that they send to the users, and some of them are just plainly checking on them, the sort of "how are you" newsletters, or informing them about various initiatives that the companies are taking to cope with the pandemic limitations. And then a third recommendation would be to focus on video content. So again, I'd love to hear from our panelists how they view those challenges, and if those recommendations seem fair to them. I'll try to see if I can stop sharing the screen for a second to view all the panelists on the screen, and then I'll return back to the presentation and try to have all of you as a gallery of images on my screen. Just to quickly up. So I'm returning back to our Zoom. I'd love to hear from you, Olia, because out of all our panelists, you are, I would say, the most involved in daily content creation for your users on your blog, Olia Moda. So what do you think about them?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we have seen an inevitable shift in the way content is created and the way that it is perceived, and authenticity. And like you said, not being tone deaf has definitely been the key factor when we're creating content. As far as brands, I mean, we've seen a huge decrease of, brands working with influencers during these times. We've also seen a huge decrease of consumers consuming stuff because there's the state of panic, and like you said, more than anything, the mental health factor is the first factor that comes in with the pandemic that we're living through. And so appropriate content with the appropriate tone is really key. And like you said, video has been huge because people are sitting on their phones, and when we're creating content, I'm looking to either entertain, somehow inspire, or educate. And it's been really fun to utilize platforms like TikTok. It was the first time that I actually sampled TikTok was during the pandemic, and I've seen a huge success with it. And now the question is whether is this platform going to continue to survive. But yes, it's been a major adjustment, and rightfully so. But it just goes to show how powerful social media is and how powerful a voice can be. As an example, Black Lives Matter, and how it really brought not just a country but a world together. And it's a little bit more. You have to be more touchy, and you have to be more careful with the way that you present content. Kind of this luxurious lifestyle when you went in onto Instagram and you were looking at beautiful people living beautiful lifestyles and sharing expensive items. That's gone. The way that we were delivering information about fashion weeks, all of that is changing, which I would love to discuss that a little bit later as well. But major shift, and time to adapt. And I think it will continue to evolve into something more authentic and something more real, because I think in the end, this is what the world is screaming for in this whole situation, is just kind of for all of us to come down and to live more simple, and to be more real, and to use our resources different way. But I have seen a huge change and also, it's really affected my business in a big way. But I see a lot of hope, and it's exciting because I've never been able to engage and connect with my audience the way that I am right now, because they're actually listening and they're enjoying, because I'm paying more attention to giving them value. And that's really where it's at.
Thank you so much, Olia. Thank you. Flora or Diane, would you like to comment on this? Flora, please.
Yeah, so in April, I wrote an article for Wired called Inevitably Could Coronavirus Kill Influencer Culture? I'm sorry, Olia, for that headline. And so within that article, I spoke both to influencers and to marketing agencies who work with influencers to try to kind of see, and also with people who consume influencer content, to see what is the future of the influencer space in coronavirus. And like Olia said, authenticity has been named many times as a factor, but on the other hand, there's also some sort of authenticity fatigue, perhaps, right? We're saturated with content where we're sitting with our phone and looking at all the stuff influencers are producing. And so especially I was interested in seeing what will travel influencers do and travel bloggers will do, and people who are building their content around this kind of lifestyle of changing locations, and modeling on different streets and beaches. And so what I heard from people is that tiptoeing the thin line between authenticity and aspirational content is kind of the way to survive, because sometimes it could be more authentic for you not to share any COVID related material that you don't feel necessarily connected with it, right? Or even I've seen influencers who I follow who I may have been expecting to see Black Lives Matter content from them, but I guess they just didn't feel like they're comfortable talking about it. And so they posted absolutely nothing about that, which I, as a consumer, also respect, right? So, authenticity can lead us into saturation of semi-authentic sounding content, which kind of sounds like a big pool of more of the same, right? So I feel like making deeply personal choices and really, really listening to yourself about what does resonate with you, rather than what social media is talking about it and sounding like that I should kind of fit my content into, right, is the thing that will be the deciding factor. For example, I know a travel blogger from San Francisco who's been stuck at home, and all she's doing is showing people around her kitchen and complaining about how sad COVID is. And that's okay, right? And that's content that I feel is authentic from her, rather than her posting pictures from her ex-travels. So I feel like it's a very, very personal time for influencers and content consumers to really dig deep into their feelings and see why we're consuming content and why we're even following influencers. And so perhaps the bottom line of the article was that only people who really make a really, really strong, real connection with their audiences will survive this time, and the other ones will just kind of fade into the background.
Yeah, I would love to add to that. There's definitely been so much pressure this time on influencers. Like, how are we going to act? What are we going to put up there? What kind of message are we going to support? And you're very right. I mean, there was, first we all had to adapt to, creating content around COVID and find our voice, and everyone did it their own way. And then there was this big hit with Black Lives Matter, and I can absolutely relate. I'm a foreigner. I still consider myself fresh. I had a really hard time adapting into that situation. But this is what this situation is about. It's about change, and it's about adapting to this change. It's about change, just like in any business format.
Of course.
It can affect any business, or any business can be affected with change. And then you figure out how to maneuver and how to get out of it. And this is what's happening. And it's beautiful, because it is going to be absolutely different. And only, the strongest, the smartest, the ones that can figure it out will survive. But I think it goes for any industry. And it's beautiful, because it was time for change. So, I agree, but I think there is a lot of pressure now on the influencers to showcase how are they going to act, and what kind of colors are they going to show, which is great, because it took away this, I don't want my children looking at a bunch of fake stuff. It wiped up the unnecessary noise out there.
Yeah.
Definitely, like a sort of an evolution, and then those coping strategies with those changes and with challenges. This is what will also remain, I think, in people's minds after the we shift to some sort of new normal, right? Hopefully. Diane,
such a shift of followers and such a gain and lack of, per se, because absolutely, because there's a societal split. So this is what's happening. Someone is going to be on your side, and then someone is going to say on to the next, and it's fine. It's part of what's happening. It's
part of the life changes, let's say, that we're facing. Diane and Uduak, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Elena. In February, I was in India on a fashion assignment and on a travel assignment, working on stories that were going to be on my blog and in print and on social media of various kinds, and also on my Instagram, which is at Diane Dorrans Saeks. And so I was in India when COVID first started appearing, and then I realized I quickly had to leave. So I took a 16-hour direct flight, the last one, back from Delhi to San Francisco, landed here in the middle of instant shutdown. So I had to quickly realize that everything had changed. Everything in my world had changed. Everything in my work had changed. Everything in my personal life was different. And I also had to quickly get used to the idea that all of the things I was writing about, fashion, travel, interiors, entertainment, opera, ballet, symphony, for example, and others, were suddenly non-existent. So all of those things that were constants on my blog and on my social media and in print did not exist anymore, were not available, were not happening. And there was another especially quick observation I had to make, which was that I saw that people, my audience around the world, were terrified. They were scared to death. And I realized it when the first day I was back, and I thought, oh my goodness, I've been on this long flight. I'd better go out for a walk. So I went out my door, put on my jacket, put on my cap and my sunglasses, and started walking. I was, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the only person on the planet in my neighborhood. There was no one else in sight. Cars had all gone, people had left town. Maybe about 2 miles down Broadway, I could see someone walking a dog, and occasionally into my view, but very far distant, a jogger might run into the landscape. But I realized how people were staying inside, they were scared, didn't realize that, in fact, the governor of California and the mayor of San Francisco had said it's okay to go outside, It's okay to go and exercise. It's okay to ride your bicycle. You can skateboard. You can jog down the street, but you should be staying inside other than that, and you should not have contact with others. So I quickly had to figure out what was going to be my content. And so, sort of as a joke, but also to cheer people up and to cheer myself up, spring started arriving in San Francisco, and all the gardens around my neighborhood are very beautiful. And so I started photographing flowers, which somebody had said to me, a friend of mine who was advising me at the beginning, had said, never, ever show pictures of flowers. They're just fluff, he said. It's just fluff. It'll get you nowhere. Don't even do it. So I had never done that. But in particular, I'd never done those close-ups that people do. I'd always thought they were pretty lame and feeble. But anyway, I started doing it. And they were fabulous, I must say. They turned out really well. And so I started posting those every day. And every day there'd be jasmine coming out, daffodils, roses, everything, cherry blossoms. I became an expert on it. And I would go out for an hour walking. There was no opera. I couldn't post fashion. There was no fashion. All of those things.
Flowers.
And then other things, architecture and so on. It also wasn't springtime then. But anyway, for probably maybe as much as a month, most of my posts are very beautiful flowers, and then occasionally something aspirational. Anyway, at the end of that, I was wanting to go out and be more engaged in the world, but I also was shocked when I'd invite a friend to go walking with me, and I'd say we'd wear our masks, always looking for social media content. I was hungry to find content. Shops were closed. There was no merchandise. There was nothing of anything. The interior of the opera house, not possible. So I would invite friends to come, and they're very sensible people. They're very healthy. And they would say, oh no, I'm not going out. I haven't been out of the house for 3 weeks. I haven't been out for a month. So anyway, one day I was going out to meet a friend, go for a walk. And I dressed up a bit. I'd been wearing the same jacket and the same shirt for a month, pretty much, and different sunglasses. But anyway, I put together an outfit and shot it, did a selfie of it, and I showed it. I sent it to a friend, and she said, "Oh, you should post that." I said, "No, I never publish myself. I do not exist on my Instagram. It seems to be about my personal life. In fact, it's not." And I said, "I've only once ever published a picture of myself, even on my blog, which is 14 years old now, a picture of me in the distance in Angkor Wat." And everybody said, "Oh, you should do that more often." No. Anyway, I posted this picture of myself wearing a Panama hat. My hair was, I hadn't washed my hair in a month or something. And I was very cheerful in the picture. I got the most likes I've ever had of anything. And I've had some wildly favorite things. Everybody, and it cheered everybody up. And I, for the first time also, and this was judging the tone, but also taking, I think the other thing is you had to take a bit of a risk. How could you know? You weren't going out. You couldn't talk to people. You weren't out socially at all. You couldn't say to your friends, "Oh, what do you think? I'm thinking about doing these very optimistic tone things and going maybe a bit more spiritual as well." Not usually my thing. And anyway, there was nobody to ask. So I just decided to say in this, I do long form Instagram. And so in addition to a picture of me with my hat, I talked about going out every day, walking, and how it raised my mood and how it put me in touch with the universe. And I started talking about how the universe was still beautiful, world was still beautiful, flowers were still blooming, because I think people were, the news people were talking about Armageddon. And what was that other thing? Apocalypse. No. There was no apocalypse. There was no Armageddon. There were just a lot of sad stories that I haven't been watching TV for months anyway. But anyway, that was a very interesting lesson. Take a leap of faith in yourself to post something different. Change your tone a bit. Be authentic to yourself, indeed, but make it somewhat different. And I've just done a second one of me. A friend gave me some fabulous new aviator sunglasses, recently. They're by a company called Key from Australia. And I put them on and sent a picture to a friend of mine. She said, "Oh, everybody says it." They said, "Oh, you should post that on Instagram." I said, no more of that. Anyway, I did it. I got also all-time high likes. So I'm not planning to do it, but I think the point is continue to be authentic to yourself, continue to talk about your interests, but now they don't exist. People could care less about fashion almost today. They do, but they're not buying it.
Right.
You know, nervous about it. But I think especially I judge that a lot of people are actually terrified. They're terrified to go out of their house. I've heard so many smart people who haven't been out of their house for a month. That's ridiculous. But anyway, everybody to themselves, and everybody has to make their own decision. But they had this feeling of the world being scary. And I presented a very strong picture of optimism, hope, faith in the world, faith in nature, the beauty of nature. And I reiterated for a month, but then with the hat thing, everybody. So I think you have to play it by ear. You have to use your own social media intelligence and experience. And what I realized also when I posted the hat picture and the optimism was nobody in my whole scope had been talking about mood, optimism, curiosity, awareness, being knowledgeable, being respectful, following all the rules, but also the world is not over. This was not Armageddon or apocalypse. And we still don't know how this is all going to turn out. We don't know when I actually was speaking to an airline this week, thinking that I could go here and there. No, pretty much you cannot.
No.
It's bizarre. I can't get my head around it. I was going to be on the Amalfi Coast this week.
That's what we have. Well, let's embrace the change.
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of, yes. Thank you, Diane.
Twisting my head. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this beautiful story and the optimistic message.
Always optimistic.
Absolutely. Uduak, would you like to share your thoughts about social media during the pandemic?
Yeah, I'm going to take it in two different contexts. One focused on my area of work as a fashion and entertainment lawyer, and then the other one as a content developer. And so on the fashion and entertainment law side of things, obviously the industry has been hit so hard, both on the entertainment side, fashion side. So what we're seeing from a law standpoint are a lot of industry professionals trying to navigate and figure out how to monetize their current existing, particularly IP, intellectual property, and then to some degree really move business more so on the e-commerce side. There was a lot of uncertainty about, you know what, do we really want to start charging people? Everybody's broke, you know, dealing with those issues. And then the other thing that came up was a lot of the retail stores, bricks and mortars, dealing with real estate contracts, you know, that are 5 years, 6 years, 1 year, they're going to break their lease because they can't afford rent. Their landlord's going to negotiate those, renegotiate those clauses. How do you deal with all of that? Because literally, as we all know, a lot of the retail stores were closed and a lot of them still are. So there've been a lot of those issues. And then the other thing that we're dealing with also is what they call a force majeure clause, like an act of God. That is that a lot of industry professionals, particularly business owners, fashion business owners, are saying, we get to get out of this contract because this is an act of God. And the question is the pandemic, is the virus really an act of God? So that's where we've been seeing a lot of the play of the issues.
Wow.
Supply chain logistic issues shut down. I have a very good friend of mine who designs for some of the major name brands and also creates private labels for them. He's based out of New York. He also owns a manufacturing company in China. All his goods completely stuck. Manufacturing come to a halt. People are really, really feeling it. So I think the question as an industry that we have to ask ourselves from the fashion standpoint is, what's the way forward, since we think we're progressive or innovative, but what we've been doing for a long time is elitism, where we're not letting people come in when they should. And now with COVID and technology really forcing us to literally just get rid of all the gatekeepers. So what do we do now to innovate and leapfrog? Haute couture is great, but guess what? Nobody's buying. And more so than ever before, such designers need to figure out how to innovate. So the final thing we're seeing on that trend of innovation, particularly specific to fashion, is virtual events. Designers are now starting to get comfortable. We're hearing fashion becoming virtual. People are trying to be creative with 3D visuals and all kinds of interesting things. So it's going to be interesting to see what the future holds on that. And I know that there'll be a lot of trial litigation work from my standpoint of what I do to deal with the issues of how do we get out of this bad situation without having to bleed so much in terms of our pocketbook. On the content side, as a content creator, I have two main platforms that I've been publishing for the past 13 years. Lady Brill, which is what allowed me to foster a long relationship with the Academy in a capacity of a journalist. And for that platform, after 13 years of consistent publishing, no stop, no breaks, I just said, you know what, something has to give. So we haven't really been publishing content a lot. Fashion, there was really not much content to be talking about. I mean, you can talk about the latest issues, but I just felt like we all needed a rest, my staff, myself, and just break. So we haven't really been publishing anything on that platform. The other platform that I have been publishing on, which is the Music, Business, and Law platform that I own, what I've seen is a radical, drastic increase in the consumption of my content, particularly on the side of podcasting. And if you're looking at the trends as well on podcasting, you're seeing that in terms of money and investment in the business as a whole, especially fashion and entertainment, lots of money being thrown at it. Spotify acquiring all kinds of podcasts, launching all kinds of podcasts, from the Michelle Obamas to the rest. So I'm seeing that. I really activated my newsletter, seeing an increase. I've always been active in it, but I've seen an increase in viewership as well. And then another thing that I've been doing very actively is accepting speaking engagements. I already do speak, but a lot of live events, and a lot of those speaking engagements have been on IG Live for the most part. A few on StreamYard, a few on Zoom, but most of it on IG Live. So I've been more engaged than ever before in that space. And what's happened is I've seen correspondingly an increase in the demand for my services. Actually, before I jumped on this call, was a journalist who was trying to, who saw something on IG and then found me, and then went and did her research for one of the top publications and wanted to talk about the issue of whether colors can be trademarked. Custom created colors can be trademarked. So overall, that's my sense and what I've observed. The final overarching thing is I'm so happy to some extent with respect to COVID, because I think for a long time we thought if employees don't show up at the office, they can't be productive. And we've seen that that's simply not the case. So remote work is a blessing for a lot of people. I know it's also a curse to some extent for moms at home who have to deal with the children and juggle that and be the teacher and everything else. But to some extent, it's nice not to deal with the travel, the anxiety involved in that, parking, all kinds of stuff, and that we can work remotely as well. So those are my observations and thoughts.
Thank you so much, Uduak. Those are precious. Thank you.
Thing?
Sure, of course.
Listening to all of you guys, I just wanted to kind of summarize both what Diane said and Uduak said about listening to the ebbs and flows of the moods, the kind of collective moods everyone is in, right? Are we in a state of panic? Are we currently hopeful? Are we looking forward? And also thinking, what is the next thing people would want to hear about that they're currently not just yet talking about, but it's appearing on the horizon. As a full-time freelance writer, in addition to teaching at the Academy, I constantly have to pitch things that are a bit ahead of the curve, right? I'm applying this thinking, and I highly suggest you apply that to social media as well. For example, I just got a email from a PR firm advertising bras you can wear all day that also help your posture, right? Because they are onto something. They know that we're sitting in front of our computer all day, and we need, some of us need that, right? So here I am thinking about this whole new range of undergarments that are going to adapt to a new lifestyle, right? So what is the next thing that we will be talking about in a month? And when you do that and you're being sensitive to the moods in social media, you can create content that is also not only timely, but is also very engaging and kind of ahead of everybody else. That's just something I wanted to add.
So precious, so true. Thank you so much, Flora. And then with what Uduak mentioned about the live events, I wanted to transition back to the presentation because that was exactly the next topic I was going to discuss with you guys. So with live events on social media and on Zoom and other platforms, so obviously the challenges that the pandemic brought in are that industry events are canceled across the globe. And those cancellations cut those precious networking opportunities that all of us, many of us in the industry, were cherishing and valuing so much and looking forward to every year. Although the advantages are that many of those events are somehow run in a digital alternative. And this digital access in a way is more inclusive because it gives more opportunities to the larger audience to attend those events, attend them even virtually. So here are a few solutions that we wanted to suggest to you to think about and incorporate in your social media practices if you're not doing it yet. So identify those main digital events in your industry. So whether you're in fashion or in photography or interior design or advertising, identify those events that otherwise you would be reading about or hoping to attend in future after you graduate. And then as you identify them, find out if there are any digital alternatives to those events. At times they run at the same time when those events would normally, chronologically. At times they are postponed because it does take time to organizers to revamp the content, to find out ways to present it in a different way. Makes me think about Diane, who recently participated in San Francisco Design Week.
Yes,
In digital format, right? Running
exactly.
webinars,
Exactly.
right. So mark your calendars and attend those events. Make sure that you make time to participate. Prepare questions, prepare meaningful questions, and see how you can share them with the organizers, whether the questions should be shared prior to the event or if you can ask them in real time. And then most importantly, act as critics, right? Post your reactions on social and join the dialogue with other creatives, with other professionals in your industry. So use this opportunity to join the dialogue, to make your voice heard, right? And then most importantly, again, think about running your own digital events for your followers in your field. So if some of you are already running professional social media accounts, think of those live events you can organize for your audience, whether it's on IGTV or IG Live or on Facebook Live or on Zoom. Think about topics of interest you'd like to discuss with your audiences and make those events a reality and reconnect with your followers and with your audience in that meaningful way. And just to give you some examples of those events from fashion world, some of you are coming from fashion journalism. Some of them are students in the School of Fashion. So these are past events that you can still view on the platforms of those organizers. So Vogue had a really interesting series of, Flora, yes, I see you raising your hand. I'll let you talk in just a second. So Vogue Global Conversations is one of the events that you can review that were happening in end of May and in June. Business of Fashion is running those live sessions. You can find them on Instagram under hashtag BOF Live, Business of Fashion Live. All fashion weeks are gone digital, right? And I'm sharing here with you a couple of publications. Vogue authors, Vogue critics are reflecting on digital fashion weeks. Were those a success? And was this digital fashion month a relevant substitute? We know nothing will replace a really powerfully well-produced fashion show, but still, whether it's probably new ways of moving forward. And then again, for those of you from fashion industry, in the presentation, you'll find a few links where to watch haute couture shows, menswear shows, and keep in mind that those fashion weeks will be digital as well in the fall. So Again, Olia, I agree that no one buys haute couture now, but still those fashion film that the brands are producing to highlight their collections are beautiful artistic examples. We get to at times look behind the scenes of creating those collections. At times, some brands are focusing on just one garment, and then again, finding ways to artistically present the collections. I would say it's not anymore about promotion, but it's about keeping their place in the panorama of fashion scene, right? So now I'd like to back. At times it's kind of hard to switch between the modes. I'm bringing the panel back to share thoughts on live events. And if in your industries or in other fields, there are other digital events you'd like to suggest to our attendees, please bring them up. Flora.
I wanted to say, so for a freelance journalist, networking is supremely important, right? You meet editors, you meet sources, you have to be there. So in many ways, digital events, especially on Zoom, are even a little better than a real event, right? Because you go to a real event, what do you see? A bunch of faces, right? You go to a Zoom event, you can see everyone's last name, living room, very important. I mean, not really, but first and last name, right? And you can really do your research. If you're attending, say, a writing workshop or a discussion with 20, 25 people, do your research while you are at the Zoom meeting. See who else is there, see what their names are, see, Google them up, see what they're doing, chat with them while you're at the event. I'm not above, and neither should you be above sending somebody an email later saying, I saw you at this amazing Zoom discussion, and you know who these people are, right? Because they see their first and last name. And let's talk about opportunities, right? So do your research, do not neglect the fact that Zoom brings all of these people to your living room with their name. Use that in your advantage, in that sense that until we go out and we can meet people, use that platform to network. And I feel like more and more people are doing it, so you won't be surprising anyone, you won't feel weird, you won't be weird, just do it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Olia. Thank you, Flora.
Yeah, no, it's been really interesting. I was traveling to Russia, and I was supposed to go to Paris and then Russia to review the fashion weeks, and you know, it got canceled right as my trip was happening. And then, you know, Russia had barely any time to adapt and, you know, try to go digital. And these designers had literally 3 or 4 days, because they just truly didn't want to cancel, to come up with you know, a solution for what was happening. And even though it was like the first produced after Shanghai, it was the second produced digital fashion week. I think mostly was like presentations versus like a digital week, because all they could do was record a small video. But it's been interesting of how, you know, we as, you know, trendsetters and people that are out there to look out for new trends, how we digest this new form of, you know, fashion being delivered to us via digital presentations. And, you know, how, you know, I've sat down, I mean, now I've watched 3 fashion weeks in this format, and it's very interesting. You know, I mean, I still try to dress up and make a thing out of it. And then we did a little podcast with some other bloggers, and we discussed it, so that, you know, you still kind of trying to bring life to what you saw, because it's much different. You have to adapt to see it on the screen. It's a totally different experience. I was really interested to see what Diane would say, or what others had to say about it, because I mean, I'm still finding my voice. I've had to review a few weeks, but I'm still finding my voice in really, you know, understanding the fashion when it's presented in such format, because it's very theatrical. So here's like this new form of entertainment, and now it's accessible to everybody. And now there's like an extra level that they can add when they're creating these videos, and it's, you know, and it's all digital and very futuristic, but it's much different than what we're used to. And then it's also much different for influencers who used to deliver, you know, stories and then write an article to be able to deliver that essence of what they saw on a screen. It's kind of like reviewing a movie. But I'm interested to see what others have to say after they've been reviewed. But I've been trying to watch as much as possible and participate in as much as possible, because this new new way, and I'm trying to adapt and find my own voice in it.
If I could just jump in, just because I
course.
have to go deal with the client matter deadline. But I just wanted to say, as to your topic, Olia, that actually I thought one of our students in the art exchange program that I'm teaching, I'm loving it, the summer program. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. The students are awesome. But
Yeah.
They're so mature and so intelligent. A few of them from my course are here, but there was a recent submission on they're creating zines, and one of the assignments was sort of like, you know, make it, do your zine on Canva and come up with different ways of a listicle. What was so interesting was one of my students that offered a way of how to basically deal with coronavirus, and she talked about dealing with live events. What was interesting, and I mentioned that in my feedback to her, and something that I definitely would be suggesting to even my clients and just the industry as a whole, was she, going with Olia's point, listed step by step how you can experience it from a fan standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So identify the streaming platform, get a location in your home, which was the bedroom, arrange that as if you're actually at the event, from the lights to all kinds of things you can incorporate, dress up specifically that way, invite your friends that, you know, COVID free and observing social distance, or if it's just you, get your popcorn if it's entertainment, and then here's how you engage with that creator that's providing it, whether it's a fashion experience or music experience. In this instance, she was talking music, and I thought so brilliant, because on the music end, we've been having discussions about how artists can truly connect with their fans. And what's been happening is a lot of this live events, artists are sort of like, yeah, playing, but there's no true human connection. And I really believe in terms of a trend analysis, that people who are really creators who are going to be successful after this COVID are the ones that are really connecting right now with that human element with their fan base, and that applies to fashion. So to see a fan say, here's how I will experience your content, and then line by line, step by step, express that, to me was just mind-blowing, and a problem solver for what on the other side everybody's trying to figure out. So Olia, it really adds to your point when you say you have to even dress up to check out the fashion experience. Absolutely. So that's what I would add to it.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry that I have to leave, but I need to go take care of this client matter.
Thank you so much, Uduak, for joining us.
Okay, take care, everyone, and thanks to my students who were able to make it. Cheers.
Wonderful. And we will continue. Thank you, Uduak.
Elena, to your
Diane.
point about Igtv and adapting, so we're all talking about having to adapt and change and be very sensitive to the tone, and also aware that people are at home all day and looking for new content. So very quickly in March, many of the people I follow in design and fashion started doing IGTV discussions. It would be a 1 hour interview generally of an editor, of a director, of a designer. And they would be interviewing a designer, a fashion designer, an interior designer. And so I started watching those, and just exactly at that same time, San Francisco Design Week, which you had mentioned, Elena, which is a large international event, annual, decided that they would not be able to hold any events in person, and that they were quickly pivoting to virtual show, a virtual event, a virtual online event only, with no meetings, no opening night, no gala, no visits to architect studios, no discussions, no panel events. And I'd been presenting events for them for several years at design studios. And so they asked me to do 6 presentations. And I had to quickly figure out, so how do you adapt a great idea in real life, visiting, let's say, a fashion studio, a design studio, and doing it online? What does that look like? What could it be? Is it a panel? Is it 2 people? Is it me interviewing a person? What should that look like? I had to plan out and conceive this whole idea. And so I quickly decided that I was also warned that, so we're going to go on a new platform, Crowdcast. And it's like Zoom with a PhD. It's very sophisticated. We all know how bad Zoom can be and how excruciating it can be. But this was going to be Zoom with a PhD level. And so, of course, I had to bring all of my devices up to professional grade. I had to work with a tech advisor, but especially as an editor, I had to, and a producer, I had to figure out, what does this, what of mine look like? How do I do it? And I was warned right at the very beginning. And this is something for those who are thinking about doing videos or IGTV or any of those things. They said to me, you know, it's tech, there'll be failures. We're all experimenting. We're all amateurs. Nobody knows how to do this. Nobody's a professional IGTV presenter. Nobody has done any of it before. So expect failures, expect technical glitches, and the best advice, and this is for anybody who's working live and doing any videos, the best advice to me was never have or allow any dead air. If someone falls out that you're interviewing and they disappear, keep talking. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. But I also, in the back of my mind, wanted to set it up so that I could have as few failures as possible. So keep it simple. Don't try and do videos. Don't do it live where you've got someone walking through a room. Don't do it live because they could disappear. They could fall out, something, they could, whatever, something could come up. So I planned it so that I in my studio, of course, we're all doing this remotely. That's another thing you have to figure out. And so I was interviewing designers who were in Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, Healdsburg. They were all over California. And so anyway, then I had to, after I planned these, I had to figure out how to do it well. How do you do it really well? So every time there was an IGTV show on, like Cabana Magazine or Harper's Bazaar Magazine, or there were a lot of Brazilian ones at the beginning, any of them, of people that I respected and that I was interested in and that I thought might be experts. I watched them. They were terrible, absolutely terrible. First of all, if you're going to be interviewing somebody live, make sure they're there, that they are online, that they're ready to go, they're ready to talk. Many of them start out, the person comes live at 10 o'clock in the morning or 11, and they're saying, oh, we're waiting for Paul to join us. Where are you, Paul? And 15 minutes would go, it drove me up the wall. And someone was going to give a tour of his house in Beverly Hills and Hutton Wilkinson. They were waiting for him to join. Where are you? There was one in Sicily that a woman did with an iPhone, where she waved the iPhone around. This was going to be 1 hour of interviewing this person. She would go in and out of range. She would wave the iPhone around. Couldn't see her. Then it was terrible. Inadvertent, naked people in the background was a constant. People wandering in and out behind the speaker, dogs wandering in and out, starting to bark, children running in.
That's the life.
It was very amateur. And so I learned things like never have an open door behind you in your set. So many things. And then also how to actually be in a picture. Most people didn't know that. They'd be either too dark or they'd be they'd be like, this would be their portrait, or this would be their portrait, or this would be their portrait was even, whereas I saw countless ones of these. So watching the bad ones, and I think there was only one good one. Oh, and then people would completely disappear. Or they'd say, oh, sorry, I'm calling from upstate New York, and the reception here is very bad. Why didn't the person who was doing the interview have them check their internet connection and make sure that it was optimized? So there was that. So anyway, mine turned out really well. I didn't have a single moment of tech failure. I didn't even have to draw on my power of filling in dead air as well. And so I learned a great deal from studying. And so many people kept reminding me, look, everybody is just figuring out how to do it. They're still learning
true.
how to do it. They may be the editor-in-chief of any magazine. They may be whoever, a top designer, but they've never done this before. And a lot of people obviously didn't really get very good advice, but I would say the basics are check your tech. If you're going to be doing IGTV in particular, it's very demanding, and it's 60 minutes. That's a very long time to fill in. And also the others that I noticed were, don't do chit chat between you and the person you're interviewing. I just saw one on Monday that I was really looking forward to. It was an editor interviewing an editor, a stylist actually, and an author. And they just chatted as if they were, sitting around the kitchen table. Oh yeah, what do you think? And oh yes, I love Tommy's work or something. Tommy who? Who is that? So it can be friendly girl talk, but remember there's an audience out there listening to you. So don't just be having, girl talk between you, make it quite professional. Anyway, that was my experience with San Francisco Design Week, to your point, Elena, and then also studying. So the quickest way to learn is study how other people do it badly and say, I'm not going to do that. That's what I don't want to do. I'm going to make sure I'm not doing it. And because that's the only place you can learn. Go online, look at IGTV. And now we're going to have these various other Instagram tools to play with. But learning from others doing badly is a very good approach. And also learning how, copying what people do really well. And I'm not a copyist by any means, and I detest people who copy, but look for examples of people who do things extremely well and aim to do it even better.
Thank you so much, Diane, for this advice. So again, a message to all of you guys attending the workshop. This is the great moment to try and organize your own live event on social media. Pick a topic, pick an attendee, a guest, make it a series, right? And play with that format. That's the right moment. That's when you have the audience attention. All eyes are on you. And that's, again, a great opportunity to try this new activity. And probably that will become part of your social media practice moving forward.
I just want to add to what has been said before, because I analyzed, how the IGTVs get viewed and when the balancing happens, and the shorter form videos work much better. We have a short attention span, and so if you do plan on having something like Diane was saying, 60 minutes, it just really truly has to have so much value and so much excitement in the way that it's presented.
Correct.
So if you're not ready for 60 minutes of excitement, then plan on a short form video, because those tend to work much better. I noticed literally the best ones that work, for fashion are up to 30 seconds long.
How long?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
30
wow.
seconds, yeah.
Oh, wow.
No,
all right.
minutes.
Minutes. So quickly. You
minutes.
will be surprised.
Yes. 30 minutes?
No, you mean minutes.
30 seconds. Yeah.
Oh, wow. All right.
If you
so
look, yeah.
That's a very short. I mean, that's more of a dialogue around video content. If we're talking about events, I think
about events. But if you're talking about
Vogue Global Conversations were each time an hour long in 2 parts, 30 minutes with one set of panelists and a creative, let's say Anna Wintour interviews John Galliano, right? And then the second part would be Vogue editor-in-chief of Vogue Taiwan would interview 3 designers, and that would be kind of a combined format, right? An example of what we did in journalism program and social media center when we are running journalism workshops, journalism meetups. At times we have students, graduate students presenting their magazines or their work. And then I was using part of those recordings. I was cutting them in shorter sessions of 10, 12 minutes long, and I was using them as episodes on IGTV. So again, you can produce that pillar content and then leverage this this production through various formats. You can use it on IGTV, you can use images on your social, you can have little snippets that will go on other platforms, use it cross-platform as well. So
Great point,
variety of
Helena.
ways.
Yeah, great point. It doesn't all have to be live.
Absolutely,
It can be
exactly.
Good idea.
Think strategically of how you would like to use the moment in time when you have people participating, right, and giving you their time and sharing their thoughts. And then you as content creator, you will then strategically use that content down the road during longer time in variety of formats. So let's switch to our next current event that I'd love to discuss with you guys and hear your thoughts about it. I'm sharing my screen again. Just a second. Share. So we are now switching to another traumatic events that we all experienced in June, right? The anti-racism protest that took form of physical protests in cities across United States, but also were translated in social media movements, pretty much all the platforms. Black Lives Matter. Let's talk about those movements, those circumstances, how brands reacted, what happened, what is happening right now, what is the impact of it on content creators and on the audiences as well. So one of the powerful events that was part of anti-racism protest was Blackout Tuesday that happened on June the 2nd, where parts of Instagram went dark in support of Black Lives Matter movement. So now with what is almost 2 months later, right? What do you think about it? Was it a social trend or was it a sign of a real change, real shift happening? And for everyone, one of the story articles I wanted to share with you is from New York Times, how Blackout Tuesday became a social media moment. Initially, that was an initiative started by musicians, celebrities, musicians that launched that movement, and then it ended up being a really massive reaction, and so many individuals and companies, brands and organizations participated in that virtual social media moment, let's say. So again, I will share a couple more related topics, and then I'll return back to our panel to hear your thoughts about this. So trying to move in my, excuse me guys, trying to move in my presentation. Yeah, so those anti-racism protests also backfired on some of the brands and organizations. So many renowned publications experienced critique on social media, and as a result of that critique on systemic racism in their organizations, quite a lot of leaders, editors-in-chief stepped down in response to that overwhelming amount of accusations. So those are real events, and although the critique happened and the accusations happened on social media, but then the impact on people's career was real, right? So now with some time afterwards, what do you think? Will those movements kind of fade out, or was a real shift happening in this particular time? And then one of the really positive again, social media initiatives that I noticed during that time was Share the Mic Now. That was a project, I think, running exclusively on Instagram in June. I believe yes, it happened on June the 10th. So that was an entire project uniting Black women influencers who received an opportunity on that very day to speak about their projects, their initiatives through the accounts of white women, celebrities, entrepreneurs, innovators, and that movement became so powerful. I believe it still is ongoing under the hashtag Keep Sharing the Mic campaign. So both were really beautiful projects, really beautiful initiatives that I was glad to see evolving on social media. So now I'd like to return back to our panel and hear your thoughts about Black Lives Matter movements on social, and do you think that was just a social media moment, or was it a sign of a real change happening in companies, publications, organizations, and so forth? Over to you.
Such a tough subject to
Yeah,
discuss.
it is.
Very tough subject. I mean, I will say my 2 cents. I had a really hard time fitting in. I think this is the most pressure I've ever felt about having to say something, not knowing how to say it. And this is the time when I took to try to educate myself about the subject, because I am in America, I am American, and I need to know. And so I think that's where the power of this situation is at, because it's a very awakening moment for many privileged white people like myself to go out there and educate ourselves. Yet at the same time, it was a social media moment, because on the day that everyone decided to black out their screens, it actually put up so much noise. It was something like 27 million people had used the hashtag, where this was the space that was supposed to be provided to educate and let the Black voices be heard.
Exactly.
So it definitely had an adverse effect. And there was a lot of criticism for those. If you decided to put up the Black square, you were being criticized if you didn't have anything to say, or if you weren't coming from a place where you should be doing that. So it was a lot of mixed messaging. And I think even personally, as much as this is such a strong sign of change for this country, and people truly did unite. I mean, the riots showed where people's intentions were. But as far as the social media, it was just over bombarded. And yeah, but it is, this is a white privileged industry, and social media is as well. And so I think this was a great opportunity for Black voices and Black talents and Black brands to be heard and to be given a moment, and for the white people to educate themselves on an issue. I think I've learned more than I ever did, because, but I was forced to. And so more than anything, I just realized how privileged I am and how, where I am. So I think I wasn't the only one that was feeling this way.
But that forced education, and then the moment and the efforts we all made to.
And it also brought a lot of criticism, because a lot of people were participating not knowing, and just putting up a hashtag doesn't mean anything, and putting up a Black square doesn't mean anything.
It's not enough. No.
It's not enough. Yeah, but it has showed true colors. I mean, I've never known how racist Russian people are, so I'll tell you that.
They are very racist, yes. Being Russian myself, I can tell that Russia is one of the countries which is so far on the scale of understanding those issues. There is really, I understood how low is diversity culture is in some countries.
Yeah, and me having my majority, my 50% of my audience is Russian, I had seen a huge effect. And I lost thousands of followers when I had finally found a way to speak up. But it was very enlightening.
Yes, it was all worth it. So it's a sign of real change, right? As I felt.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you so much, Olia.
I think it will continue to, I think this was kind of like a big seed that now is going to continue to be watered and hopefully grow into.
Exactly. Well, thank you for being brave and honest.
So hard to talk about it.
It is, yes, I understand, because we try to question ourselves where we belong, what are the right ways of understanding, addressing, and then again educating ourselves on the issues is key. I also learned a lot through the process and continue to learn. So I do believe it was a sign of a real shift happening. I still am sad to see how again, because I come from journalism background, I was sad to see how many publications reacted to it. One of the examples from fashion journalism, right? Man Repeller is one of the websites where we all would love to see a different reaction. The editor-in-chief stepped down, although I think that was a time to stay and show change and like show how one can evolve instead of step aside. So a lot of controversy definitely around those topics. We all continue to educate ourselves. So it's a process which is, although started, fortunately is not over. And I think, again, that's proving that these social media movements and those social media moments were the signs of real shift happening on very many levels, and probably we're closer now to improving the situation with systemic racism in companies, organizations,
I would like to
media as well. Sure.
I think it has had a bigger effect on content creation on social media than COVID. Because it really put a massive stop sign up for many voices that are still trying to figure out how to speak. And then when they chose to just step back and, you know, give space and pause their content creation, I've never felt so much anxiety to find my way back, like drowning, trying to find the language, trying to find the right way to dip my toe back into creating content again, because that's my bread and butter. And it was really challenging, much more challenging than COVID. And it still has an effect. And it took, it took, you know, over a month for people to be able to, you know, slowly integrate regular content creation into their strategy.
Absolutely. So those are growth pains for
you
sure.
You guys hear me now?
We do. We do.
Finally. Okay, so just to add to what you all were saying, so like Olia, I'm an immigrant to the States. I came here about 7 years ago from Israel. I'm also Jewish. So in regard to Black Lives Matter, my response was different on the professional level and the personal level. On the personal level, as somebody who has also a micro influential Instagram account and somebody who posts stuff on Facebook, I was truly struggling with forming my own opinions that would sound authentic, because like Olia said, I am a newcomer. I am still figuring things out. And I also was hearing a lot of things about Jewish privilege, which I really, really struggle with and have really conflicted emotions about. So I kind of avoided the topic altogether, but not because I don't feel strongly about Black Lives Matter, but just because I could not find my precise way to form my thoughts. And I really was also aware of performative allyship on social media, which is a term I've been hearing a lot on social media, about how social media can be just a gateway for you to kind of perform a Black Lives Matter ally post, hashtag, but actually do nothing at your own home. So I was really aware of that and was trying not to be a performative ally, right? On the professional level, however, as a writer, it did make a really big change in my perspective and a way that I think about who I write about, who I feature. And I am more now than ever aware of the percentage of people of color I feature in my articles and entrepreneurs of color I look at, and I'm trying to really kind of correct course and feature much more people of color than I've ever been doing before in all industries. If it's about beverages, if it's about designers, if it's about entrepreneurs, anybody in tech, I'm always going now to try to seek out people of color to feature in my articles. Something that I was doing prior, but not with that much intention. So for that, I'm really thankful to the movement and to the change that's been happening. And I feel like it makes me a better journalist.
Those are real actions, of course, that you apply to your work. Beautiful. Thank you.
And
thank
Elena,
you so
just a note to Flora's very good point about including a range of people. In thinking about it, I absolutely am confident that my writing has always been very broadly inclusive of a range of people, a range of genders, a range of talents, the broadest possible range. I'm open to writing about them and always have been. And I just thought of one striking example. Some years ago, I was writing for the Chronicle, and I was the interior design editor. There was actually a home section, and also a magazine section of the Examiner, and I was writing about two designers who had been in partnership for a very long time and had been in a relationship for about 20 years, 25 years. And so I was writing about a particular house. And first of all, they asked me not to mention that it was a one-bedroom house. And I said, oh, why is that? And they said, oh, we don't want to scare our clients. We don't want them to think that we both sleep in the same bed. I said, oh, okay. I said, I'm very respectful always to people's private lives and to the people that I'm writing about. And there's no reason for me to suggest anything that might make you uncomfortable. So anyway, I wrote the story, and I wrote about them as a couple. And I said the couple rented this house and so on, and decorated it and so on. Within about an hour, I had a call from the editor, who's since left. Her name was Connie Ballard. She worked with Michael Bauer, under Michael Bauer. And she said, oh, Diane, she said, you can't say couple. I said, why not? She said, this was, believe it or not, this was only about 15 years ago. She said, well, two men can't be a couple. I said, well, they'd like to be. And they are. These two have been together. And I said, I insist that you refer to them as a couple. She said, no, married couple. I said, well, Connie, you might not realize this, but gay men cannot marry. Two men cannot marry. Two women cannot marry. They would if they could. Currently, they're not able to, but I'm referring them as a couple. That was the first time two men in any of these stories, and I think in the entire Chronicle, had been referred to as a couple. It wasn't San Francisco Chronicle style to refer to, there were all these convolutions, lovers, boyfriends, all these bizarre sort of things. Two men who'd lived together for 25 years definitely were a couple. But speaking of inclusivity, some publications were not ready for it. So they're changing, everybody is changing, but I would say when I did a personal inventory, I definitely have always been very broadly inclusive of any group, and also aware that San Francisco, the majority of the demographic in San Francisco is Asian, but Asian people actually are not very strongly represented in any news stories or any stories in the Chronicle, for example, or the New York Times. I'd like to see a much broader, diverse range of everybody included in every story. And that's progress. But anyway, I realize, and I think most writers also, I can't think of any writers who would say, oh, I'm not going to write about El Salvadorians or whatever, Brazilians or Chileans or Bolivians or short people or tall people or obese people. Writers, journalists tend to be tremendously diverse in their selections, and none of them, I think, is writing only about one particular group, especially in San Francisco.
Right. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. So for us journalists, content creators, social media content creators, it all in a way starts with language. So in those challenging times, we struggle to find that language to educate ourselves on using words correctly, terms, and then secondly, representation in the content that we create, so that various cultures, those minorities have their place, their space in that content, and that we're paying attention to those who otherwise would be not represented enough, let's say, in that space. So definitely process in this very workshop. It's not the time for us to resolve anything, but it's more to give you all guys who are listening to us a suggestion to continue to educate yourselves, find your points of reference, find your resources, identify those resources that you feel are teaching you the correct approach, and then as Flora and Olia and Diane are already doing, apply that to your work daily, whether it's in the content that you build, topics that you cover, people that you highlight in your publications and social media posts. And then now the next topic I wanted to switch to, and I believe we will be running over the planned 4 o'clock time mark. So I do thank all of you who would love to stay. I believe we will be wrapping up in probably 15 to 20 minutes or so. Is it all right for everyone?
I might have to jump off sooner.
Yep, you might have to jump off.
I'm just gonna do discreetly.
Yeah, all right. Olia?
Yeah, I have to go get my children, unfortunately.
Right. Diane, are you with us
Yes.
past the 4 o'clock mark? Yes. All right. So let's go over those topics that we planned, and then if Olia and Flora, you will have to leave in the meantime, then thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation. Wonderful insights and very helpful words of wisdom that we heard from both of you. So the topic that I wanted to discuss, the next one, is about those really dramatic tectonic shakes that happen with some of the powerful social media networks as we know them. And one of them is Facebook boycott, that it's not anymore a social media movement. It's more of the real action from advertisers, from hundreds of companies that are joining that ongoing boycott to pause ad spending on those platforms. So how do we see it as viewers, as audience? How are those platforms coping with this criticism? So a couple of resources that I wanted to share with you. One is the New York Times most recent story that appeared, I believe, this morning or yesterday, about Facebook still failing to appease the organizers of this ad boycott. So unfortunately, that particular platform is not coping well with that crisis happening around them. Another significant event that all of us, we have to be aware of when we work in the field of social media is the Twitter hack issue, the one that happened last week when over 130 high-profile Twitter accounts were compromised and received a Bitcoin scam. The scam was actually effective, productive. More than 110,000 of equivalent Bitcoin was deposited on that fraudulent account. So Twitter is still dealing with the consequences of that, of this security breach. And I do regret that Uduak had to leave the panel, because she's the one who's teaching with us data and analytics, and who would be, as a specialist in law, also the best person to comment on this. But as of now, I wanted to bring the event on your radar if you were not aware of it, and encourage you to follow up on the development around this particular issue, because it does show how vulnerable the security barriers in those systems are, unfortunately. And obviously, this affects the business trajectory of those social media networks in future. And then the third really event that was discussed so much in the media recently is the TikTok ban. So the popular application TikTok was that's already effective, was banned from installation on federal employees' work devices in the United States. So the ban, in a way, is already applied in the US. It's not banning the platform altogether in United States, and users, private users, can still enjoy interacting on this platform, but definitely it's a sign of somewhat of a political conflict around platforms, but at the end of the day, the users are the ones who experience the most of the negative results of those bans and those conflicts. So I'd love to now bring the panel back to comment on those issues. Stop sharing my screen. Flora and Oleg, glad to see that you're still here, but if you'd like to briefly comment on this.
No, I have to leave. I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much,
everyone. I enjoyed seeing Tripti here. Tripti is my student this summer. Hi. And
Wonderful.
The rest of you as well. I hope to see you again in another opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Flora. Thank you.
Flora.
Thank you. Olia, would you like to comment on TikTok before you leave?
Yes. Yeah, I'm just waiting to see where it unfolds. I was seeing a lot of value as an influencer in TikTok's platform, and it's it's kind of how Instagram was when I got started on it, where you have an opportunity to grow exponentially, and brands are now requiring you to to attach your profile to TikTok, so they're seeing what kind of engagement you have there. But I've also, I've been reading up on these news, and I'm just waiting to see what happens. I'm continuing to platform. I'm having tons of fun, and I think if Instagram, which they will, ultimately
launch Reels.
Instagram is going to come out with a variation of what TikTok is providing right now, and it's such an important opportunity for anyone who is using social media to jump on this new feature, because what Instagram does is when they release a new feature, they want you to succeed in this feature. So I've been using Instagram 5, 6, 7 years since it pretty much was established. And I know that if you are using the new feature they release, they make it successful for you. You're going to succeed. You're going to be heard. You're going to have you're not going to be falling under this algorithm that they do. So as soon as it comes out, I can't wait to sample it, because the whole concept of delivering content that is quick and effective and entertaining, which is what TikTok is able to provide. That's the reason I'm using it. If I'm able to do it on Instagram, I will happily do it there, as long as I can have the same effect, because I've been able to create a lot more engaging content on TikTok. And so once it does, I suggest to everyone to jump on it, because they're gonna wanna make you succeed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Olia. This is really precious to hear it from you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No worries. Thank you so much, Olia. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
we will be wrapping up soon. Thank you. Thank you. Diane, thank you for staying on the panel. Of course, would you like to comment on those events?
So here's my take on this. TikTok primarily at the moment is for a somewhat narrow audience, probably younger even than most people are kind of suggesting. I think it's definitely a very large number under 16, tremendously popular, and it's also making people famous. It's a great diversion, and teenagers are loving it. But I think the point is really that I've never actually seen this stated, but when Instagram launched, people massively moved from Facebook, dropped Facebook, and the cool thing was to be on Instagram, that it was the coolest place to be, that's where you wanted to be. You didn't want to be on Facebook anymore. So then Facebook now, still draws very large groups and has a different function, I think. It's not so much the cool, quick stuff anymore. It's more special groups, information, and so on. So now what I observe on Facebook, on Instagram rather, and I will see how people evolve from Instagram onto the new function and their new tools. But already, remember when stories started and people started doing stories, the evolution on Instagram now majorly is certainly more people doing IGTV, and that's really since February, since COVID and the lockdown and quarantine, so many more people are doing IGTV content, which some of it's 60 minutes, which is hard to imagine. But I think that's the slot they give you, 10 till 11 or 11 till 12 or whatever it is. And so you have 60 minutes to fill. But now I see the speed with which people are quickly adapting to stories is lightning speed right now. So I think that's a direction that people should master. A lot of people still are not on that. But, and then, so there was a mastery of, and this has happened, I would say, since March the 1st as well. People, first of all, just posting a picture on stories, and they're whatever, me in, walking down the street, or me in a new outfit, or whatever it was, but somewhat limited because we couldn't go out. And so a lot of it seemed to be food or existing content. But now people are quickly moving to video and lengthy and extended stories, much more evolved than they ever used to be. And to a point where I see some people who were doing really good Instagram content, basic Instagram content, have now migrated to stories, and that's where they publish all the new things. And so I did a test recently of posting a new story, but basically both on my site at Diane Saeks, and then secondarily on stories. And I saw two completely different groups of followers. I was really shocked. It was very interesting test. So I have a lot of engagement on I just got 6,000 followers, and I'm a private person. I'm not selling anything. I'm a micro influencer for a lot of companies, and not for companies, but certain areas, books and fashion, and certainly travel as well. But I think that anybody on Instagram who's not aware that a lot of people now are only looking at stories, because stories are immediate, they're quick, they're fast. They usually have no text. In fact, it doesn't really have text. And it's usually got also some links as well that are interesting, the friends of that person, the place they're visiting, the thing they're doing. So you can get a quick hit. And also remember, you can't go back, because once you've looked at it, it's gone, and then you move on. But I see that some people now are only following stories. So I think those people are the early adapters and adopters, and that they'll be the people who'll do the next pseudo TikTok copy, and we'll move on to that. And they're moving away from even checking, I think, your basic site as well. That was a very interesting marketing survey I did for myself. And I'm slowly moving to, I mean, there's only so much time in a day, and I'm not a professional, I'm not a life, committed Instagram person. And I'm not, selling product. I'm not selling clothes. I'm not selling anything. I don't have a company that I'm promoting. So 6,000, I think, is quite good. They're all real people. They're all engaged. I haven't bought any. I haven't done any promotion. But if I wanted to spend another hour a day on Instagram, I'd be doing more stories if I had that time.
Wonderful. And then I wanted, thank you, Diane, I wanted to reiterate on what you said about Instagram stories and remind everyone that stories can be a content that you will include in highlights, so it will stay.
Right.
So do use it fully, because I do see a trend. So Instagram stories are definitely a really big trend for 2020 in general.
Yeah.
I saw Instagram series where companies, press agencies were highlighting creatives during pandemic, doing more kind of episodic content on them, mini interviews, and so forth, and then keeping them in highlights allows
Exactly,
you
Elena.
to have those little series and those episodes and share it with your audience. So make sure you create meaningful stories.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. And I see now even very established Instagram people that I follow who might have 70,000, 100,000, and very diverse and broad engagement. I see them now doing highlights when they weren't even doing it before. And some people are doing extended versions of highlights, which include videos, and they're really massively concentrating on that. And I think some people did pay attention to that if they had a commercial motive. The private people generally weren't doing highlights so much. Now it's massive. And so between highlights and stories and extended stories, that sometimes the content might be 5 minutes, 2 minutes, quite lengthy material, including videos, still imagery, and so forth.
For stories, there are also tons of fun templates out there. Canva is a really great resource. I'll be mentioning it in the resource pages in the presentation later on. So go play with that type of content. That's somewhat a hybrid between that Snapchat disappearing content and then the really high engaging, dynamic, creative content that you can offer to your followers, and you can also organize them in highlights so that it stays and is offered to your users even before they dive to your main feed. And we will be wrapping up just in a few minutes. I'm returning back to the presentation to share with you a couple of resources about that new feature that Instagram is launching, which is called Reels. So keep an eye on this development, follow in the media what's going on around this new addition. So Instagram will launch its TikTok competitor known as Reels in the US in August. Instagram is now testing it in other countries, such as France and Brazil, and is seeing amazing result with it. So follow up on this development in the media, and as Olia suggested, when the new feature is out there, play with it and explore this new format, and through this gain a new interesting aspect of your social media practices, your social media activities. And then finally, another new platform, new addition to known platforms, to TikTok, as TikTok is experiencing a lot of criticism, and it is about to be banned, at least partially in the United States. At the same time, it launched a new platform called TikTok for Business. So for those of you taking social media strategies or content development courses, this is definitely a new resource to keep an eye on and explore. So advertising on TikTok was already possible in the past, but now the platform created a specific tool for businesses to create impactful TikTok videos that at the same time will have advertising purpose, meet advertising goals with that new content. And then finally, just before we wrap up, I wanted to share with you just a few resources for content creation and strategy. Many of you already learned about those resources in the classes that you're taking. So here are the links to a few blogs that we recommend to check on regularly. One is Adweek, and although it's a resource for advertisers and marketers, it has tons of information about new introduce new features on social media platforms. So keep an eye on that particular resource. 4 blogs that are really fantastic in terms of educating you on best social media practices, tips on content creation, tips with strategy, on analytics, and all the topics that we just covered. Those are the blog of Hootsuite, the content managing platform, Content Cal, Sprout Social, and finally, one of the best podcasts on social media out there is Social Media Examiner. So check out those resources. All those are clickable links that you'll be able to explore when you'll receive the PDF of this presentation. And then finally, just a reminder of a few resources that will help you to create content. So for graphic design, Canva is really a fantastic app that will allow you to create a variety of graphic design for all your social media needs. For polished writing, I recommend to heavily rely on Grammarly and use this application extensively. And then finally, I'm sharing with you here a selection of about 50 best visual content creation tools for 2020. So you'll have a little bit of homework to do after the workshop is over. And finally, a few resources, a few social media channels to connect with Social Media Center and with your instructors. I will now stop sharing my screen and return to you guys to thank you all for attending the workshop. Diane, would you like to say a final word to our attendees?
Elena, I'm so impressed with the content you put together.
Oh, wonderful.
It's fantastic. Very broad ranging, very current, right up to the minute, all of it outstanding, covering all of the major topics. And thank you so much. I appreciate it. And
thank you.
It was really great. I was thinking I should, I'd like to see this again, actually. And
we'll do it again. We'll do it again in the fall.
Good. It was really fantastic as a framework and as a very broad, in-depth overview of social media without the cliches as well, which is fantastic. It was your language, it was fresh ideas and tremendously helpful. And I think it also moved the idea forward away. We've moved away now, and you very distinctly pivoted away from the cliches about social media, that it's all, you know, young people, all these boring things about it, and all the influencers and the fake influencers, and all that. We've done with that now. Those ideas are gone. Now we're looking forward to new ideas from Instagram. And I think someone who's really just wanting to get started on Instagram in particular, I see Instagram as the major social media at this point. TikTok is fun with kids, you know, doing fun stuff. And I think there's a language there that should be explored. You should look at it. I don't really post much on Facebook at all anymore. I post a link to my blog. Sometimes I will post a picture from social if it's of interest, but if I miss a few days on Facebook or even a week, I don't really mind. And now pretty much all my followers have moved over to Instagram anyway. But on Instagram, I think it's really important to, I'm learning from a lot of my friends certain techniques as well, because I must say, my motive is not to have 100,000 followers, actually. And I learned very quickly, very early on, when I was first starting to do Instagram, even before, I wasn't on it for quite a long time because I was turned off. I'm a journalist. I write. Instagram is the antithesis of that. It's sunset, new baby, dog rolling over, new baby, whatever. No, I don't have a dog or a new baby or a dog rolling over or any of those things. And San Francisco is not particularly good for sunsets. So I was not interested in it. I thought, that's not my thing. Everybody's saying, oh, you should be on Instagram. Anyway, one day I was talking to a friend about an interior designer, and an average interior designer, not a great one, but quite good, but actually not even that great. But anyway, a nice person. He does have a dog that appears often. And this person, and I said to this person, well, he's an interesting designer. I don't find him innovative or impressive. And this person I was talking to retorted very fiercely, but he's got 128 followers, 128,000 followers on Instagram. I said, really? I looked it up. A lot of them were bots, by the way, including I saw a Tunisian weightlifter was following him with pictures on the beach. I don't think that has anything to do with intuitive. But anyway, I realized that if people were now being judged strictly by the number of followers on Instagram, it wasn't about are they a good designer, wasn't about if they were innovative, it wasn't about anything but, oh, they must be good. They must be good because they've got a lot of people. And I noticed this person also, his numbers would go up by 10,000 a week. He bought bunches of them. So anyway, I've decided that I better very quickly get on Instagram for that reason. But I must say, I'm not leaping and following and knocking myself out to buy followers. I'm letting it grow organically. I know most of my followers, or I know of them. I did make one deadly mistake that cannot be corrected. So I would suggest to anybody just getting started on Facebook, on Instagram rather, and trying to do it well. I made the naive mistake at the beginning of following a lot of people. So now, for somehow that I cannot figure out, on my Instagram, I appear to be following 7,492 or something. 7,000. If I had been clicking follow my whole life, I doubt that I could get. Somehow it got to that reason, and you can't. And anyway, I tried to delete some of them, but it turned out they were friends of mine or something that would come up. That can't do it. But anyway, my friend said, okay, the main thing is start getting your numbers higher. So, and I said, well, how many would be a good number? He said, maybe 128 that you would judge. And that evidently Instagram judges you by the small number of people you're following. Who would know that?
Well, definitely the trend now is instead of pursuing those vanity metrics, right, is to have meaningful conversations with your audiences, and the engagement, such as reactions on your posts, how users are actually engaging with your content. That's definitely.
Yeah, I have fantastic engagement. I have very high engagement, really strong engagement. And also evidently Instagram also looks at, and this can be a very interesting gauge of someone's, how effective they are. I have a very high ratio of posts to followers. So I think mine is something like 6.1 or something, which is really meaning few posts. And very high engagement from those posts. So
wonderful.
Instagram likes that. That's something to pay attention to, not just posting meaninglessly. I post usually once a day approximately. And there's another aspect, which is Instagram likes to see high engagement. So to your point, Elena, I realize I forget what the ratio of my engagement is, but it's very high. So I looked at the engagement of this person who supposedly had, this designer with 128,000 followers. He had maybe 7 comments. Very, very, very low. A lot of likes, which were probably bots or various fake things, but also very, very, very few as a percentage. Compared with mine, where I would get X for the 6,000 out of the 6,000, he was getting maybe, X, very low number out of 120,000. Now people who pay attention see that, and it's very important. But so there's so much to be aware of that's different from what people think it's going to be clickbait and to create following. But so I'm trying to get over the embarrassment, the absolute total embarrassment of having so many people that I supposedly follow.
I'd be happy
so
to look
embarrassing.
into it.
What?
I'd be happy to look into it and probably find solutions, some technical solution to help you with.
Oh, I'd love it, because it's just
Absolutely.
embarrassing. It's
Absolutely.
such an amateur thing
No
that I
worries.
naively did. If someone asked me to follow them, I followed them. I thought
I'm
it was
so sure
polite.
that there is a cure to that.
Oh,
For
let's
sure.
do it.
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah, because it's
I wanted
very
to.
embarrassing.
Absolutely, no worries. I wanted to open floor to our attendees' questions. So, guys, before we wrap up, if you have any questions you'd like to ask to me, to Diane, questions for future as well, we might probably not give you answers right away, but that would be the indicator of topics of interest that you think we should discuss moving forward, because we will definitely have those social media workshops moving forward in the fall and in the upcoming semester. So if anyone has a question or would like to share a thought, a feedback on topics that we just discussed, or comment on the workshop content, you're welcome to. Now is the right moment. So that way, if you'd like to speak up, unmute yourself and share your question with us. No? It's all right. It's okay. Anyway, you have our contacts, my contacts. Many of you RSVP'd before connecting to the workshop to my email. And in the presentation, I will be also sharing the social media handles of our instructors. Without our panelists, this workshop couldn't happen. So thank you so much, Diane. And
Oh, thank you, Elena, for creating
wonderful to
such
have this
fantastic
discussion.
content.
Absolutely. All right, thank you everyone. So I will be finishing the workshop now and finishing the recording. Have a wonderful rest of your day and stay tuned to our upcoming events. And
Right. And to my students, I'll see you online, and onward and upward with inspiration and hard work and study of social media as well.
thank you.
Thanks, Elena. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.